Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here, and today we have our first ever Rangers of Shadow Deep game report. You've heard me talking about it for a while, you've seen me set up the houses, you've seen me set up the warband, and now we're finally getting to do a game. This will be a solo campaign, so of course we're starting on Mission 1, Scenario 1, The Deserted Village. If you're not familiar with the background for Rangers of Shadow Deep, your warband represents a ranger of the fantasy kingdom of Alador and his companions. A mass of dark clouds has fallen over a neighboring kingdom and has started encroaching in yours, and with it comes a bunch of monsters and evil cultists and stuff like that. So the Rangers have been called up to fight it, and unfortunately my Ranger, who's been kicking back in town after a successful early career, is dragged back into the front lines. But it wasn't the King's first choice, no. Initially, the King sent another Ranger Aventine to a village to investigate reports of an attack on it, but that guy hasn't come back, so now he's down to the B Squad and my people to go find out what happened to him. If you want to find out more about my warband, I made a whole video about them, so you can watch that to find out who they are, what they're equipped with, and what was going through my head at the time. But just real quickly, from left to right, we have my rogue, Patchy Jorvus, my swordsman, Robert Renault, a Tracker Phillipe de Gaston, then my Ranger, Tyrus Halperdirk. Next is a Templar named Grundel Gracht, and finally my Man-at-arms, Kael Rexmaar. So here is the deserted village all set up. You see it requires 4 or 5 buildings. I went for 5. I tried to set it up in a nice scene and then realized that's not actually possible. See, you have to put down 4 zombies 6 inches in from the center point of each of the table edges, and you also need to put down 4 clue markers 14 inches from the center point of the table running to each of the 4 corners. Also, because my party deploys within 3 inches of the center point of the table and all the houses have to be 6 inches away from the nearest model, well, that effectively means that they all have to be 9 inches away from the center point. And because my buildings are fairly large, that meant that I kind of had to dodge the various markers and zombies, and, well, this is how they ended up. There's also a little bit of scatter terrain. There's a stream in the northeast, which shouldn't matter. We also have the aforementioned zombies, as well as 2 giant rats. One giant rat you can just barely see at the top building in the center. The other one is hiding on the other side of the building in the lower left. 2 more clue markers also go into random buildings, so I rolled up the tower on the right as well as the ruined church. For game purposes, these buildings are locked, so the ruined church, the only way I can get into there is by making either a picklocks or strength check to open the front door. I just figure it's blocked with rubble right now. Same thing goes for the tower. I put the clue marker on top of the tower, but we're just going to imagine that it's actually on the lower level inside. The game is going to last for 8 rounds. At the end of every round, I'm going to draw an event card, one of 9, so one of them isn't going to get used and something random is going to happen during the game. As far as general strategy goes, and I have a little bit of time to think about this because I'm playing solo and I can set this whole thing up and, strategize for this first turn. I don't actually need to accomplish much in the course of this game. I just need to survive 8 rounds. But there's a lot of experience points to be had from getting these clue markers, and I want to grab them all. But I don't want to just send off my guys in different directions. I think that's a recipe for disaster. So for this first round, I'm going to hold the center point with my Tracker and my Ranger using their bows. And I'm going to send the majority of my forces to the right and just clean up all those clue markers which are clustered over in that side of the board, inside those buildings. As much as possible, any fights I get into, I want to have the numerical advantage, so a lot of times I'm going to try and move up to within double move range of a monster, let them come to me, and then on my next turn actually activate the fight. That means I don't have to waste actions actually moving into the monsters, and I can strike when I have the greatest advantage. But before the game actually begins, we get to make a perception roll with a difficulty of 8. Now, both my Ranger, Tyrus Halperdirk, and my Rogue, Patchy Jorvus, have a perception +2, so I just choose Patchy, and he makes his roll. Gets a 14 +2 for 16, so I get to move one of the clue markers that's not in a house up to 6 inches directly towards the person who spotted it. So I chose the clue marker in the lower left. It was going to be one of the last ones I got to, so it just hops forward towards my guys as you see there. So now the game can begin. It's round 1, and the way this works, you have a Ranger phase, a Monster phase, a Companion phase, and then the Event phase. In the Ranger phase, I can activate my Ranger and up to 2 of my Companions, and they can make their full complement of 2 actions, one of which always has to be a move. There's also a special activation that I can do. I can activate up to 2 of my guys with the Ranger, and they all move, and then I choose them to make their second action afterwards. It's kind of like a big mass charge thing. I'm not going to do that very often. To start off with, I'm going to activate my Tracker Phillipe de Gaston. He is going to take a shot at the giant rat that you can see at the top of the picture there. The giant rats are very squishy. They only have armor 6 with 1 health. However, they are much more dangerous on the attack than the zombies. They all have a fight of +0, so that's the same, but they move 6 as opposed to 4, and they have this diseased bite, so I'd rather pick those guys off as quickly as I can. He takes a shot with his bow, but he misses. For my second action, Big Phil is just going to move down towards that church at the bottom of the picture there. That's going to take him to within 4 inches of that zombie all the way on the east side of the table. The zombie's going to get to move into Phillipe and attack him. However, that's okay because it's actually a trap. For my next activation, I'm going to activate Robert Renault, my swordsman. He's going to move, and he's going to cluster up with Phillipe there. So now I don't have to waste an action attacking, and when the zombie comes in, I'll have some pretty good bonuses to the combat score. Finally, my Ranger's going to activate. He's going to take a shot at that rat lurking in the building up at the north end of the table. The rat is in cover. I roll badly again, missed the rat. That's kind of a drag because that rat is close enough to actually charge me. I'll have to use both of its actions, but it will get into contact with Tyrus. I'm just going to hold there for my regular action. We're going to ambush this rat. Tyrus is going to be bait. So with that, I've activated my Ranger and 2 companions, so it's over to the monster phase. And when you're doing the monster phase, the creatures with the lowest health activate first, and you randomize from there. So the first rat takes its first action, moves its full 6 inches towards the closest character, which in this case is my Man-at-arms, Kael Rexmaar. His second action is another move, but then you only get half your move the second time, so 6 inches plus 3 inches, total of 9 inches, so he ends up where you see him over on the left. The second rat goes and charges Tyrus. He has to take both of his actions to move to do that, but he comes within 1 inch of both Kael, my Man-at-arms, and my Templar Grundel Gracht. When an opposing model comes within 1 inch of another model, they can force combat and move into hand-to-hand, so both of my guys do that. Then all the zombies get to go, so they all lurch towards my guys. The zombie on the right charges Robert, but Phillipe is there to force combat. So the zombie is the only one that gets to attack in the creature phase. Monsters always attack the model with the lowest health. Now almost all my guys have 12 health. The only exception is Patchy, my thief, he's only got 10, and Tyrus, my ranger, he's got 18. But both Robert and Phil have a health of 12, so I just randomly determine. Turns out the zombie's going to try to eat Phillipe. I would have rather him to have attacked Robert. Robert has a nice attack score of +4. Phillipe only has +2. But Phillipe does have that staff of his, which gives a -1 to the zombie's attack, so it's real close. And of course, both of them have +2 for being in a fight with a friendly model. Unfortunately, none of that helps if you roll a 1 for your guy. So, Phillipe, right out of the gate, we roll a 1 for our attack score in the first close combat of the game. The zombie gets a nice 15. That goes down to 14 because of the staff. But still, Phillipe has got an armor of 11, which means he takes 3 points of damage. Not how I wanted this first combat to go. So I'm not real impressed. I've done 3 opposed d20 rolls so far, and the monsters, even though they have +0 to the roll, and I've had between +2 and effectively +5, I've lost them all, so that d20 gets retired and I pull a new one. So we go over to that rat combat, and we're going to start off with Kael Rexmaar, my Man-at-arms. This new die is not rolling a whole lot better than the old one. It ends up rolling a 6. Now I still add his attack value of 3 plus the 2 friends in combat for +4, so that does bring me up to a 13, and thankfully the rat only rolls a 5 this time. So Kael wins the combat, he does enough damage to kill the rat, he uses his second action to move into combat with that approaching zombie. So now we're going to activate my Templar Grundel Gracht. The Templar is my most expensive companion that I have. He's got heavy armor, a double-handed sword, which is going to do +2 to the damage if I manage to win a combat. And he also has a really nice fight of 4. And Kael the Man-at-arms has done really well setting him up. He managed to kill that rat because why would a big fancy knight spend his time just beating up a giant rat? And he also moved into combat with that zombie, so now he's going to get a +2 for having a friend there. So we've set up Grundel's charge really well. He's going to go into that zombie with his first activation. We're going to fight for our second. He's going to be +6 to the roll versus the zombie's +0. I get a 9, which is okay. That'll give me a total of 15, and the zombie rolls a 16. So with all that, the zombie manages to put 4 points of damage on poor Grundel Gracht. Nice job, Grundel. We set this all up for you and come in there and almost get your face bitten off. So the last activation is going to be my rogue Patchy Jorvus. I've got a couple of fights with zombies I really don't want to get bogged down on, but if I send Patchy in there, since he has the lowest health, he's going to be the target for some of these guys. And he's only fight +1 with a dagger, so he's not great at it, and I really would like to get him moving using that nice lockpick of +8 to open up these doors for my other guys to go get the clue markers. In the end, I decide I'm going to use my throwing knife. I've only got one of these, so this is my one missile weapon shot of the game for this guy. But I kind of think it's a good time. I've got that rat right there that I'd really rather not spend Tyrus's activation dealing with. So, Patchy's going to take out his throwing knife, chuck it at the rat. The rat has a little bit of cover. I roll a 9 on my die, plus my shoot of 1 will give me a 10. Thankfully, the rat only rolls a 3. So even with the cover, I managed to win the combat. I go way over his armor, and I managed to make one dead rat. Good job, Patchy. We might not be rolling terribly well, but at least the enemies are rolling a little bit worse right now. For his second move, he's also got that nice move of 7. He's going to go to the church door so he can open that up in the next round. So finally, we are on to the event phase. So I have got 9 playing cards. So I've got red ace through the number 9, and I'm going to draw one of these to find out what happens. Now, I've taken a look at these beforehand, and the only one that I really don't want in the beginning is the ace. That's going to bring on 4 more zombies onto the board, and they're going to come on in the exact same positions as the old zombies were. So they're going to be relatively close to me. I've just moved up closer to that spot, and I haven't had any time to clear out the old monsters. So I really would prefer not to have that card. The rest of them are fine. I think with that setup, you've already figured out what the card I drew was. Yeah, sure enough, I was thinking to myself, all right, anything but the red ace, and I'm great. It's the red ace. So 4 more zombies show up, and I think this scenario just got a whole lot more difficult. So new round, and it's the Ranger phase, and we've got a series of problems. Number 1, I've got these fights that I thought would go a lot better, and these zombies are still here chewing on my guys. I really don't want the new zombies to pile in there and suddenly making it a more even fight for the undead. I think Kael and Grundel are probably going to be okay, but I'm a little worried about Phillipe and Robert. So I'm going to take my ranger, Tyrus Halperdirk, and I'm going to move over to help those guys. He's going to sprint forward. He's got that move of 7, and he's going to take a shot at that zombie coming up on them. Not only that, he's going to move in front of that big combat so that if I don't kill this zombie, the zombie is going to charge Tyrus and not the group there. That works out reasonably well. Even with the modifier for me moving while I'm coming up on this zombie, I do 5 points of damage to this guy, and he only has 1 health left. Next, I'm going to activate my swordsman, Robert Renault. I activate him because it would be nice for me to kill off this zombie if I can, so that when that fresh zombie goes and charges Tyrus, I might be able to support. Also, if I wait for the creature to attack in the creature phase, he's going to attack Phillipe, who is already hurt, so I'd rather do this combat with my fresh guy right now. Anyway, I've got a +6 to the roll, and I do win, but I only end up doing 2 points of damage, which means I must have rolled an 8 on my die. 8 + 6 being 14, minus the armor of 12 will give me 2 damage. Not what I was hoping for, but I'll take it. Same thing over on the top. I am going to activate Kael Rexmaar, my Man-at-arms. Again, he is more healthy, so I'd rather him take this first combat. He is at +5 to the combat roll. Again, rolls a 9, gets a 14, only does 2 points of damage. It's very possible that on my attack rolls I've only rolled above a 10 once. So now it's the creature phase. The giant rats are all gone, so the creature with the lowest health is this zombie closest to Tyrus with 1 health remaining. And he goes in and charges my ranger, but finally we get a good roll. We get an 18, gives me a 21, but the zombie gets a 20. But that doesn't matter because zombies don't do critical hits, so I still win the combat. I absolutely murder this zombie, and I think I may have just wasted an arrow on this guy. I mean, Tyrus's attack would have done 9 points of damage, but still, this is a good result. We finally got a zombie off the board. So next we have the damaged zombies in the combats. The zombie fighting Robert and Phillipe. Now, I think I make a mistake. I forgot that Phillipe had taken damage, and so I randomized the zombie's attack, so he ends up attacking Robert. Grand scheme of things, I don't think this is going to make a difference, but I do apologize for that. First game of Rangers of Shadowdeep. Anyway, to punish me, Robert rolls a 6, meaning he gets a +6 to this combat roll for a grand total of 12, and the zombie rolls a 14, so Robert takes 3 points of damage. Back up to the combat with the zombie and my Templar and my Man-at-arms. The zombie, of course, is going to attack Grundel. We roll another 6, so with my bonus of +6, again that brings me up to 12. I wouldn't even hurt these zombies if I was winning the combats, which, by the way, I am not. The zombie rolls an 18, and Grundel takes 6 points of damage, leaving him with just 2 health left. This is supposed to be my most impressive, tankiest fighter. Grundel's taken 10 points of damage, and the zombie's taken 2 from my Man-at-arms, not even from Grundel. For the remaining creature activations, the zombies just close in on my guys. One zombie is able to use both of his moves to charge Kael Rexmaar, my Man-at-arms. Sorry I didn't take a picture of this. Over to the companion phase, and my party continues to underperform. Phil is now going to attack this zombie. He rolls a 7. The zombie rolls a 13, minus the 1 for Phil's staff. That means the zombie wins with 12 and hands Phil another point of damage. After that, I retire my second d20 of the game, and I've got my third one coming out. We're going to go over to Patchy Jorvus. Patchy is going to try and open up the door of that church, and that one gives me a success, granted with a score of a 2. The difficulty is only 6, so Patchy's 2 plus his 8 for his lockpick skill will make that successful, but I'm not real confident moving forward. Well, if my dice aren't behaving, at least maybe I can stack the odds as much as I possibly can. So after he's picked the lock, he's going to move into that combat with the zombie. So now it's Patchy, Phillipe, and Robert all surrounding this guy. The only character I have left that can activate is my Templar Grundel Gracht. And if I activate a fight with this zombie, with only 2 health left, there's every possibility, especially the way I've been rolling, that this guy is just going to die. So I hate to do it, but I'm just going to pass on his activation. I have a plan. My ranger is still active. I think I can help the situation, but for right now, no combat for Grundel. We go on to the event phase. I draw the red 9, which is the disease card. It means that if any of my guys go out of action or reduced to 0 health, then there's a chance they could pick up a disease at the end of the game. It's not great, especially the way some of these combats are looking, but at least it's not more bad guys right now, which I definitely don't need. So, new round, and we're going to start with Mr. Halperdirk. He is going to move over to that combat with Kael and Grundel, and he is going to use the heal spell on Grundel, which is going to heal him up 5 points of damage. It's not perfect, but hopefully that gets him to the area where he can start throwing that double-handed sword of his again and not worry about immediately dying. Obviously, I would have loved to have done something else during this round. I would have loved to attack. I would have loved to have saved that heal spell because I have that spell book. If I don't use it this game, I can save it for the next one. But I think in the short term, this is just what I had to do. So next I'm going to activate Grundel himself. He's full of hit points now. I need him to start doing some work. So he's going to attack that zombie. I don't get the +2 for having a friend in the fight now because he is fighting his own zombie. And I roll a 3. With my fight of +4, that brings me to 7. The zombie also rolls a 7. Now, when you get a tie in Rangers of Shadowdeep, it counts as a hit for both parties, but both of us have an armor of 12, so neither of us get hurt. What a miserable performance from Grundel. This is not going well at all. So I've abandoned a little bit of hope with that fight over there. We're going to go over to the other side of the board where we've got that big fight with Robert, Phillipe, and Patchy. We're going to activate Robert, my swordsman. He is going to add +8 to this roll, but it doesn't matter, but this time in a good way because he rolls a 20. That's a critical hit. He automatically wins the combat and adds 5 to the roll. He's going to get a total of 33, which is absolutely going to chop this zombie in a bunch of tiny pieces. So that was just Robert Renault's first action. He can now take a move action. I decide I'm going to jump into the church and grab this clue marker, my first clue marker of the game. Hopefully that zombie will follow me and we can gang up on him later on. But short term, we find a mutilated body. So now I have to make a survival roll at difficulty 6. Robert doesn't have survival, but 6, that's not really that hard. Anyway, I roll another 2 and so I fail that. Would have given me additional XP at the end of the game. So not the best ranger phase, but I didn't take any damage, I killed a zombie, and I did heal up Grundel. So moving on to the creature phase. The lowest health is the zombie that is fighting Grundel and Kael Rexmaar. Grundel, of course, has the lowest health, so he's still going to attack him. This time, though, Grundel does pretty well. He gets a 15 plus 4 for his attack score. That'll give him a 19 versus the zombie's 12. Add 2 for the great weapon, we're looking at a final score of 21, which makes one dead zombie. Grundel Gracht got it together and finally lops the head off of this thing. Over on the other side of town, we have a bunch of zombies chasing after Phillipe. My intention was for them to chase after Robert, and then I can attack them from behind with my other guys. However, I kind of forgot how the AI works in this. Basically, Robert ran into the church, and now he can't be seen by those zombies, so they're going to use their first action to chase after the guy that they can see, which is Phillipe. The first one uses both of his actions for movement and still can't get into combat. The closer zombie, however, can use its first action to get into combat with Phillipe and then use its second action to attack. Thankfully, my rogue Patchy Jorvus is right there, so he's going to force combat, give Phillipe a little bit of support. The zombie is going to attack Phillipe because he has the lower health. Fortunately, my dice are kind of waking up a little bit. I think they're doing a little bit better. I roll a 17 plus Philippe's attack score of 2, and of course 2 for having a friend, versus the zombie's 5 minus 1 for the quarterstaff. So grand total of 21 to 4. Phillipe, Big Phil, kills a zombie, bonks him on the head. There we go, I can feel the tide starting to turn. A nearby zombie on the other side of town charges Grundel. Tyrus is right there, so he forces combat. So we've got 2 of my best fighters against this one zombie. Grundel rolls another 2. Plus 2 for the friend, plus 4 for his attack gives him a grand total of 8 versus the zombie's score of 8 means it's a tie. But of course, neither of us can hurt each other because we're both armor 12. Even with Grundel's great weapon, only brings it up to a 10. Meanwhile, Kael Rexmaar is fighting his own zombie. He rolls a pretty miserable 7 plus 3 for 10 versus the zombie's 13. He's got an armor of 12. He takes a point of damage, and the last zombie advances. Oh, it was looking so good there for a little bit. So we're on to the event phase, and we get a red 8, which is terror. So the person with the lowest will stat in the group has to make a will test with a difficulty of 16, which is kind of a lot. Everybody in my group has a will of plus 2 except for Patchy Jorvus, who has a will of plus 1. So the only person who has to take a will test is Patchy Jorvus. If more than one model had the lowest will roll, then they all would have to make it. So maybe when you're setting up your Rangers and Companions, make sure you have one low will in there for when this event comes up. Be really nasty if, say, your entire group had to make a difficulty 16 will roll. Especially since if you fail it, you get no activation in the next round. Can you imagine, like, I don't know, 3/4 of your guys not being able to activate the next turn? It'd be miserable. But not in this case, it's just Patchy, and not only that, he rolls an 18 on the test, plus 1 for his will gives him 19, passes with flying colors. That's a brave, brave rogue. So we're on to round 4, and I'm not feeling great. We've only gotten one clue, and we're just surrounded by zombies. I'm going to activate my Ranger first. My Ranger's not bad in combat at all. He's got a fight of plus 3, so we're going to fight this zombie that is attacking both me and Grundel. I roll a 10, plus 3 for my attack skill, plus 2 for having a friend in the combat, gives me a grand total of 15. The zombie rolls a 14, which isn't bad, but I still win by 1 and cause 3 points of damage. Phillipe de Gaston has a zombie bearing down on him, so I am going to activate Phil. We're going to shoot at that guy before he charges into me. I roll a 6, though, plus 2 for my shoot, but the zombie rolls a 15, so I miss. Unfortunately, Phillipe can't go anywhere. He's within 1 inch of this zombie, so if he moves at all, the zombie is going to force combat. So I say, hey, whatever, I'm going to jump into combat, and then we're going to move over to my friend the swordsman, Robert Renault. He's going to jump out from that building. Hey, don't go in there, there's a mutilated body in there. And he's going to attack this zombie that's trying to beat up his friend. Robert's on a bit of a murder spree, rolls a 17, plus 4 for attack, plus 2 for his friend. That'll give him a total of 23 versus the zombie score of 3, so that dispatches another zombie. These 3 mooks on the east side of town have kind of cleaned up their section of the table. It's my warriors that are struggling in the north. Speaking of its creature phase, we're going to start off with the wounded zombie, and he's still going to try to attack Grundel Gracht. Grundel rolls a 7. Ugh, this guy and his dice rolls. Plus 4, plus 2 is going to give him a 13. Thankfully, the zombie rolls a 3. So now Grundel has won the combat and gets to add his 2 for having a great weapon. That's going to bring that up to 15 and kill that zombie. Just barely, but we do it. The other zombie attacks Kael. Kael rolls a 7 as well, but the zombie rolls a 2, so no damage. I haven't felt the need to do this so far, but I'm actually going to push the zombie back. When you win a combat, your ranger and companions can choose to just shove the target monster away 1 inch. And I am getting a little nervous about how late in the game we're getting, and I have not gotten enough of these clue markers. So I think I might want my squad to just push this guy away and then just scatter. To help out with that plan, the last zombie charges in against Tyrus. Grundel is right there, he's going to force combat. The zombie then is going to attack the wounded character. He smells blood, he's going to go after Grundel. Grundel rolls an 11, but he's going to get +4 for his attack, +2 for having Tyrus in the combat. The zombie rolls a respectable 14, but Grundel is still going to win. We're going to add our 2 for the great weapon. That'll be 19 minus armor 12, that's 7 points of damage. Grundel, doing some work here, making up for some of those past rolls, kills another zombie. So that was the creature phase. We're on to the companion phase. We're going to start out with Patchy Jorvus. Patchy is going to move to the door of the tower and attempt to pick the locks. Gets a 20. Patchy knows what he's doing. We're going to activate Kael Rexmaar. Kael has booted the zombie away, and so now, in accordance with the plan, we're just going to scatter and get some of these clues while we can. He's going to bank right and grab that clue in the northeast. Turns out it's strange tracks. That's kind of unfortunate. 2 of my other guys have got the tracking skill. He does not, but it's only a difficulty of 6, and he rolls a 12. So good, we found some tracks leading away from the village. Same as Kael, Grundel Gracht, the Templar is going to break away and he's going to move to that clue in the northwest. He doesn't get as far because the Templar is only move 5 as opposed to move 6 for most of my other guys. That's it for the companions. On to the event phase. We get the red 6. So that means 2 giant rats show up to 2 random buildings adjacent to them and out of sight. So one of the rats hides behind this crate in the small cottage in the southwest, and another one shows up behind the tower. So new round, Ranger phase, we're going to start off with Tyrus Halperdirk. He is going to shoot that zombie that we're all moving away from. I roll a 9 though. It's not going to do anything, especially when the zombie rolls a 19. So he misses, and I am going to sprint towards that clue that no one is close to. That is where one of those new giant rats showed up, but like I said, it's getting late in the game. I need to start gathering these things up. So now I have a little bit of a choice to make. The thing with these rats is they can't see anyone, so now they're going to move to a target point, which is going to be an unclaimed clue marker inside one of the buildings. And there's only one of those left, and it's inside the tower. What I could do is activate Patchy and have him go and grab that clue marker inside the tower, and now there's no target point, and so all these guys that can't see one of my models is going to move randomly. That could be good to just have those giant rats just move wherever during their activation. But then there's really no telling where they're going to go, and so this rat behind the tower especially could end up getting Kael or Patchy in combat, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to try and send Phil to sort this out. I'm going to activate Phil. He's going to move over. He's got that nice movement of 7, so he can get an unobstructed line of sight to this rat skulking behind here. I'm still far enough away so that the rat can't move into Phil and attack me this round, but it doesn't matter because I roll a 16 plus a shoot of 2 will give me 18 versus the rat's score of 9, and he just executes this rat. Alright, so that problem solved. So now I'm feeling pretty good. There's only 1 zombie and 1 giant rat on the board. None of them are even going to be able to move into combat this round, much less attack me. So I don't activate any of my other companions right now. When we go into the creature phase, this is a mistake, and I'll get to it in a moment. The lowest health monster activates first. That is that giant rat. It's going to move towards the target point, which of course is the clue marker in the tower. After it's done that, it now is able to spot my ranger Tyrus, and it gets distracted and decides he'd rather eat him instead, and so he moves his remaining 3 inches towards him. But now we get to that mistake I was talking about. We activate that zombie. He's not within 6 inches of any of my guys, but he's going to chase after the closest person, which is going to be Grundel. So he goes his 6 inches, and he ends up within 1 inch of Grundel, and I forgot about that whole forcing combat thing. So now if I move anywhere with Grundel, that zombie is going to be able to force combat and get into a fight with me. Not that big a deal. Grundel still has a fair amount of health and he is still a Templar. So I'm just going to go and force combat with the zombie. The zombie is going to move within 1 inch of Grundel, so I'm going to move in there. That way I can fight him in the companion phase, and if I kill the zombie, then I can go and move towards the clue like I wanted to. Speaking of companion phase, that's where we're at. I'm going to activate Patchy Jorvus. He's going to go into the tower and get that clue marker. Hey, turns out it's the treasure. Leave it to a thief to find the loot. So we put down a treasure token. Patchy has to spend an action to grab it, but that's fine. He has an action to spend, and so now he's got some money. Robert Renault the Swordsman is going to go grab the clue marker in the southeast. Turns out that's some herbs. We roll up on the table and we find out it's a potion of healing. Heck yeah, I will take that. Kael Rexmaar hears the sounds of fighting and realizes he left his friend alone with a zombie, so he's going to double move back to help out. So the only person left to activate is Grundel Gracht, and I do a little bit of math. Grundel's got an armor of 12 and 7 hit points left. That means if this zombie wins the fight with either a 19 or a 20, Grundel is going to die. Or at least get taken out and have to roll in the chart after the battle, plus the disease and everything, and I decide I don't want that. That's a 1 in 10 chance of this guy losing. Maybe a little less, because he can always win the combat, but I decide I don't like it. So he's not going to activate, we're not going to fight this round. I'm going to wait till our friends show up. So we're over to the event phase and we get the red 4, which means that a zombie is going to show up at a random clue marker. Oh, I really don't need a zombie showing up behind Grundel. Turns out it appears at the clue remaining over by Tyrus and the giant rat, which isn't great, but it is better. New round, Ranger phase, we're going to start off with Tyrus Halperdirk. We're going to shoot at that rat because, again, they are more dangerous. And he rolls a 7. Plus 2 will get me a 9. Rat rolls a 10. Miss again. I'm going to move away a little bit. I'm going to be more than 6 inches away from the zombie, but within 6 inches of the rat. I have a little bit of a plan. Kael Rexmaar charges in against the zombie. He's going to help out Grundel. They've tried to be a team this whole game. He's going to roll a 7, though, plus 3 plus 2. That's going to give me 12. The zombie rolls a 2, but I don't cause any damage. For my final companion to activate in the Ranger phase, I'm going to choose Phillipe de Gaston. He's going to move back. He's been doing pretty well shooting these rats so far. He's going to try again, but he rolls a 7 as well this time. Rat rolls a 14, plus gets 1 for cover. Rat's just fine. And now that gives the rat an opportunity to attack. Comes charging in against Tyrus. This is what I didn't want. Didn't want to have to make these disease rolls. It's not really that big a deal. And plus, Tyrus has got buckets of health left. But even so, it doesn't matter because a Tyrus rolls a 12, adds 3 to score, gets 15. The rat rolls a miserable 2. Tyrus, shaking off some of the ring rust, manages to get another kill. 2 zombies left in the creature phase. The zombie over by the clue marker chases after Tyrus. Then we're back over to the combat with Grundel, Rexmaar, and the zombie. The zombie, of course, is going to attack Grundel because he is more hurt. But Grundel's got a plus 6. What could possibly go wrong? Well, he can roll a 2. And the zombie can roll an 18. So frustrating. Grundel takes 6 points of damage and is down to just 1 health. So now it's the companion phase. Patchy, my thief, has to run in there to try and help. Use a double move to try and get over there while hauling his treasure along. Grundel, if he loses this combat by anything, he's going to die, so I can't activate him. Robert Renault also takes a double move, moves within 1 inch of the zombie, which is going to force combat. So now, the next time my ranger activates, he can either just skirt past this whole mess and go get the clue, or he can jump into combat and Robert's already there to lend support. That's it for my guys. We're on to the event phase. We draw a red 5, which means that a giant rat is going to turn up adjacent to a building closest to one of my models, which means that we've got a rat right there that has snuck up on Big Phil. So now we're on to round 7, 2 more rounds left. We're going to start with Mr. Halperdirk. Mr. Halperdirk, he would love to charge in and help out Robert against that zombie, but that rat is a little bit of a problem too. In the end, he's going to take a shot at the rat that just arrived, try and get him off of Phil's back. He rolls a 4, the rat rolls a 20. Good thing I wasn't in combat, that would have sucked. Anyway, we're going to skirt past the combat. Robert's doing his distracting thing, and we're going to go get that final clue marker. One of the things that has been affecting how I move and when I grab these clues is that there are 6 clue markers and 7 possible things you can find, one of those being a zombie. So I've tried to avoid someone grabbing a clue when there was no support to be had. And I still haven't found the zombie, and you can't get the same result twice. So there's 1 in 3 chance of me getting a zombie, but I go ahead and I take the risk anyway. Tyrus goes, he grabs that last clue marker, and we find a survivor, which is actually fantastic. It's one of the best results you can have. It's a bunch of experience, and it's also another body on the table if I need it. His stats are terrible. He's just this wounded farmer, but I think we've already found out that good stats don't really help you all that much. For my next activation, I'm going to go with Patchy Jorvus. He is going to move into contact with that zombie. This is what thieves do. They sneak up while people are engaged with someone else and they stab them in the back. We're going to roll our attack dice. Roll a 1. I cannot catch a break over on this side of the table. 1 plus his fight of 1 plus 4 for his 2 friends in this combat gives me a grand total of 6, which ties the zombie 6. Neither of us is going to cause any damage. Finally, Phillipe de Gaston is just going to turn around and casually shoot this rat that thought he was being all stealthy. I roll a 17 plus 2 for the shoot versus the rat's 1, so that kills that rat, and I move over to help my buddy Robert. That takes us to the creature phase. We've got 2 full health zombies left on the board. We're going to start with the zombie attacking Robert Renault. Robert gets a reasonable roll of 13 plus 4 for 17. The zombie gets a 19. The swordsman only has an armor of 11, so that's 8 points of damage. Robert tumbles down to only having 1 health left. Now, actually, I would have been healthier if I had had that zombie attack Phillipe in the beginning like he was supposed to instead of Robert, but that's what you get. And now we go over to the combat with Grundel Gracht. Grundel Gracht got 2 friends in combat with him, but the zombie is still attacking him because he has the lowest health. He has 1 hit point left. He has got a massive +8 to this dice roll. I roll a 7, which is not great, but that does take me up to a 15. The zombie also rolls a 15. That means it's a tie, and we both take a hit. Grundel dies, falls over, goes down to 0. That's it for him. Grundel's attack on the zombie, 15 plus 2 for the great weapon, total of 17 minus the armor of 12, 5 points of damage. Zombie's still alive. So incredibly miserable. So now the companion phase. Kael activates, kills the zombie. A little bit too late on that, Kael. And he goes to the clue. The good news is, of the 2 things that we have left, we have the body of Aventine, the guy we're actually supposed to find, and the zombie. We managed to find Aventine. Not only that, but we now get to make an armory roll to see if we find this person's magic sword. The difficulty is only 6, and Kael Rexmaar is my guy with the armory skill. He's got +3 to this roll. I'm only going to fail this on a 1 or a 2, and if I succeed, then I get the XP and I get a magic sword for the next thing. I roll a 1. Another 1. No sword, no XP. Thank you very much. On to the event phase. We get the red 2. 2 more zombies show up in the middle of the west and south board edge. So, final turn, we're going to start with my ranger, Tyrus Halperdirk. Still bitter about losing his good buddy from his old ranger days. I'm going to take out our frustrations on this zombie here, charge in, try and save Robert. I'm going to have a +5 to this roll versus the zombie's +0. I roll a 3. Zombie rolls an 18. Yep, sure, why not? Going to take 7 points of damage, but then I remember I have this skill, Hand of Fate. I've been saving it. Haven't really needed it. The monsters have been rolling so high on the combats that I've lost or missed or whatever that it really wouldn't have done much good. But this is my last opportunity to use it, so I might as well. This time I roll a 13. 13 plus 2 for the friend, plus 3 for my fight will give me an 18. So I tie. I still take those 7 points of damage, but I do kill the zombie. Fine. I'm glad. There's not really much more to do. I've gotten all the clue markers. These zombies aren't going to get in combat with me, and I don't feel any reason to send, say, Robert into their midst. So Robert activates, he just moves a little out of the way. Big Phil moves up, he tries to shoot one of the zombies, might get lucky. He rolls a 12, plus 2, get 14, versus the zombie's 20. Nope, zombie far too tough for us. So the game's about over, and I'm wrapping things up, and I'm kind of out of time. I have to leave. The zombies amble forward, that's fine. I know that there are 2 events left that we can get. One, more zombies show up, one of the buildings collapses. And I don't bother reading the description of the building collapse. I figured none of my guys are in the thing. I even know this at the time. It's like, I better check to see what happens when a building collapses. Is it just it falls on anyone in the building, or will it fall on anyone nearby too? But you know what? I'm out of time. It doesn't matter. What are chances that this is even going to make a difference, because it's a random building and most of my guys are away from them? Well, I do get the building collapse, and I randomly roll one, and it turns out it's the cottage with the survivor who's standing right outside. And yes, it is. Anyone within 2 inches gets an attack +4. This could be terrible, and it's my own fault. I'm just rushing through this. The good news is that in the end, the farmer only takes 2 points of damage. If he had died, that's a huge chunk of XP that I would miss out on, and I'd feel kind of bad. But it turned out okay. So yeah, I'm really bitter about the dice rolls. Truth is, my guys actually did really well. We killed a pile of rats, a pile of zombies, and we got all the clue markers. We didn't get all the bonus experience points because honestly, I blew a bunch of really easy rolls. These skill rolls that came up when you get a clue marker. And what can you do? They're just D20 rolls. That's the thing, these D20s. I gotta tell you, I dislike this opposed D20 system. I absolutely believe that games will have an element of randomness, and I think that solo games especially need a fairly good chunk of it. If things are too predictable, then a player is just going to be able to game out exactly what they need to do, and they'll just be going through the motions. So I'm okay with randomness. My problem is that I've realized in this game that the spread is so huge with the opposed 20s that your modifiers just about don't matter. The survivor that I found with his +0 and armor 10, he's just about as good in a fight as one of my better companions with a +3, +4 fight and an armor of 12. My strategy of stacking the odds in my favor by getting a bunch of people in combat, those +2s just disappear to insignificance a bunch of the time. And if you have a bunch of people attacking, honestly, in some cases, it's just going to give the bad guys more opportunities to attack you. If you're not rolling good dice, it's just a handicap having more people there. But it's the post game. We're going to go on. The first thing we need to do is determine the extent of any injuries. The only person to go out is Grundel Gracht, again, my most expensive guy, my Templar. We're going to roll on him. 9+ he's fine, 1 or 2 he dies, other things just got random disabilities. Immediately roll a 1. Grundel dies, first game, most expensive companion. At least this means I don't have to make a disease check for him. This eats. I'm probably okay. I'll probably make it through the next scenario, the infected trees, finish up the mission, recruit a new person. I'm down a guy in the next mission. That's not great. Down my biggest fighter. That's not great. Another person to go collect clue markers, burn down trees, that kind of thing. Not happy about that. Like I said, lose out on the XP. Speaking of XP, we're going to add that up. Maybe that'll make us feel a little bit better. If I get 100 XP, my ranger goes up a level, which is nice. So we got 28 XP for killing monsters. I killed 14 of them. Pretty good. I got a grand total of 36 for picking up all 6 clue markers. I found Aventine's body for +12. I didn't find the sword, so no bonus there. I got the survivor, which is +15. So that is a very thankful farmer. +6 because I did discover the tracks. Thank you, Kael. So all totaled up, we get 97 experience points. Just shy. Thankfully, we also have a treasure token, and so I roll on the treasure chart, and I get golden jewels, and that gives me +10 XP, or one of my companions can get one of their progression points. I don't see any reason to give my guys progression points. I feel the 10 XP for the ranger is just a lot better. So Tyrus Halperdirk gets 107 XP. That means he goes up a level. We get to add a couple more skill dice. I add 2 to swimming, 2 to leadership. Want to keep working on that one, and another 1 to perception. And so that's it. That's the end of the game. My guys heal up, and we're going to go on to scenario 2 of mission 1, the infected trees. Robert is going to hold on to his healing potion. Let me know if I did anything wrong. If you have any questions, observations, concerns, that kind of thing, you can leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for bearing with me, and I will see you on the next one.